It is time for This Week in Location-Based Marketing, episode number 55. Today, Sunday, December 11th, 2 weeks until Christmas. I hope you've done your shopping, because I haven't at all. My name is Rob Woodbridge from Untether.tv, found at untether.tv, or at Untether, or at Rob Woodbridge. And with me, as always, from Toronto, Ontario, Canada,
Asif Khan from the Location-Based Marketing Association. You can find us at the LBMA on Twitter or at thelbma.com on the web. And you can find me personally at Asif R. Khan on Twitter as well. There you go.
We are all about the Twitter. I mean, I think the more accounts, the better, don't you think?
Totally.
Just so that there's a basically some kind of complex maze that you have to get through so that you can communicate. Well, it's very simple. Asif, I have to start by saying that Ryan Braun, who is the National League MVP, this is one of these things where I am, as a baseball fan, utterly and completely, shocked, disappointment. I don't think shocked is right. But this guy, Ryan Braun, who led the Milwaukee Brewers to their first division championship in, I don't know, maybe forever, has been actually he had a steroids test and he was over the allowable limit of testosterone, and they found out that it was a synthetic testosterone, and so in theory he's tested positive for steroids. This is the MVP. I'm so disappointed. I've been in shock this whole time.
I know, it's pretty crazy, and I'm a big baseball fan as well. And it kind of, when I saw it, kind of reminded me of Ben Johnson back in the days. You know, as a Canadian, you're watching that race and you're like jubilant for about 12 seconds, and then it all fell apart. But anyways.
But you know what? You remember exactly where you were when Ben Johnson won that gold medal. Like when he beat Carl Lewis in 1988 in the Summer Olympics. He set a world record, and for those 3 days, because I think it was on either a Friday night or a Saturday night, we didn't find out until Monday, but we were jubilant as a nation. And then we've been embarrassed ever since.
Anyways.
So I'm disappointed about that. But we've got a big show for everybody today, because, first of all, we've got some big brands wading their way into the space, like Home Depot. We got Rogers getting into the deal space. We've got a really silly idea in Weathermob. We're going to come to that. Maybe India is got a little bit of news from India. A new product from Google. Is it a new product or not? It's in beta. We got our product of the week, which is a great company out of New York City called Fondu. Got some great funding news. We're going to get right into this, and a good resource, obviously, from Forbes about this thing called mobile wallet. I don't know what else you could ask for in a show.
No, plenty to cover, so let's jump right into it.
Well, we're going to be here for weeks because there's too much news. So the first story we're going to talk about today, big brand Home Depot teaming up with the radio station du jour, Pandora, to do some advertising, some location-based advertising.
Yeah, Pandora's been hot lately. I mean, I think a lot of brands, Home Depot just being kind of the latest in a series of many that are leveraging this platform to reach an audience. And so effectively what this is they're running mobile ads in the platform to engage consumers, to drive traffic, to the retail locations, same as all the deal platforms and everything else. It's just that, in this case, it's Pandora. It's another channel. We've talked about Shopkick in the home. We've talked about, all these other different channels, and here comes Pandora kind of making itself available to all these brands. And so in this particular case, you see the ad running in the Pandora system, you tap on it, takes you to a Home Depot mobile optimized web page. You can look at tools, you can look at things there, and ultimately you can get directions to your, from a location perspective, you can get directions to your closest Home Depot, and potentially offers and other things as well. So nothing really fascinating or unique in terms of functionality, but interesting that it's coming through Pandora that has a huge audience. So
yeah, I like this. Obviously, I mean, Pandora is, as I said, it's I don't see much difference between what they're doing with radio IP, radio over IP. Versus radio over the airwaves. Airwaves, you've already got this bandwidth. Anyways, don't get me started on the radio side. I don't want to replicate radio in the IP world that that cost me a lot of money to listen to. But you know what I'm disappointed about this, and I think it's, you know, I'll put this as a blanket statement. There are very few companies that are doing mobile advertising properly. It's one thing to have an ad in an app like Pandora, but it's another thing to get an action out of this. It's like, you don't want to click through. Let's get rid of the click through when it comes to mobile advertising. What we want, what you really want, is an action. So, you know, you either want somebody to sign up for a mailing list, you want to do location specials, you want to drive people to your store. You don't want to leave it up to them to click through and then just have a silly excuse of a mobile website that just displays information about your tools and that kind of stuff. You really, like, people aren't getting it. And that's what's frustrating about this, because you're going to put a lot of money into this. And you know, you got to get a little bit deeper in engagement with your customer base that are actually clicking through. This is not display advertising. This is action advertising when it comes to mobile devices.
Completely agree with you. But here's my take on this. I think this is good if you're Home Depot, in the sense that as long as it's part of a multi-pronged strategy, you know, it's just one of the many things that you're doing from a mobile and location perspective. Great, which I know that's the case for Home Depot. The challenge, I think, here is on the Pandora side, actually, you know, in terms of, you know, if you're going to go hard into this space and you're Pandora, you need to think about, you know, are you going to go build a local sales force now in each little city? Are you going to try and, you know, replicate the human capital intensive models of Living Social and Groupon and all these guys? Because those are expensive businesses, you know, and
yes,
you know, can you compete there? So I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting. You know, I like the fact that they're testing and doing something, you know, trying to try some different models, but this could be a difficult model for them.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's, I mean, the challenge, as you said, it's going to be Pandora. The challenge is that we're in this testing phase of all these kind of things. But you're right. You know, even when it comes to companies that have feet on the street, say take newspapers, for example, and their mobile applications, they have sales guys, local sales guys for these newspapers, and they're struggling to fill display ads. So what makes Pandora any different without those resources? I think this is a struggle for everybody to try to find their footing in this space. But but you know what? Too complex. I think that's what we're facing right here, is that, you know, take Pandora, and I'm going to put it aside because that's a bigger challenge. But for Home Depot to be effective in this space and use Pandora, whether they succeed or not, Home Depot is spending money with them. And I'm not saying that's a bad idea, but to be effective, you need to be simple. And you don't want to get them engaged and into this application or whatever they're driving them to, and then have them like scan barcodes and that kind of stuff. It's, no, listen, this is an ad. What you want them to do is you want them to sign up for something or put up their hand. And I think that's what makes me disappointed about these things, is that let's not do this half-assed. Let's get into this. Put a little thought. Don't be lazy, advertisers. Do something right. Pandora? Yeah, I mean, I think that they're just testing the waters. They're trying to figure out how to make money. Aren't they a public company? Don't they now have shareholders?
Yes.
Don't they now have to report revenue? Right?
Yeah, we'll see.
All right, so, yeah, I mean, it's good, you know, that they're attracting big brands. From Pandora's perspective, I like when big brands get into this. And Home Depot's no stranger to mobile advertising or mobile engagement, so hopefully they just... I'm just looking for somebody to win here. I'm like one good example of advertising. And I'd love to hear if anybody out there is listening or watching this has that perfect example of a company that's engaged properly in mobile advertising. Bring it on tether@gmail.com. Second deal? Second story?
Yeah.
Talk about some homegrown stuff. Rogers up here in Canada.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're listening to this, you're not from Canada. Rogers is one of our big three.
Isn't it the biggest
carriers?
They are the biggest carrier.
Of the three. And well, you know, a sidebar story, because we started with sports this week. The biggest news in sports anywhere on this planet is the Rogers and Bell, two of the big three, basically teamed up to buy 75% stake in Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, the owner of the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Raptors, Toronto FC, yada yada. This is huge news, huge news if you're a sports guy, and it's all about content. It's all about how they're going to deliver that content over mobile, and in particular, I think is going to be a big piece of it. So anyways, that's just a quick sidebar. This is the same Rogers that we're talking about here. And they've announced a platform called RDeals, which is basically their entry into the local deal space. And, you know, another big company, another player in the deal space. And in Canada, you know, we've got a few of these now. We talked about Yellow Pages offering their thing called Shopwise. We've talked about Toronto Star Corporation with WagJag, which is a Groupon competitor, and Shopcatch, which is their kind of main play for big brand retailers. And that's really the market that RDeals is going after as well, is the Shopcatch type customer. Couple differences that I see here, and I had a chance this week to actually chat one-on-one with Jason Taffler, who's the Chief Digital Officer at Rogers, about this, and kind of asked him why. And kind of what I heard from him on the why is that, they see the Canadian deal market really as, it's about a $300 million market today. They think it's $1 billion market. So there's a lot of room for growth and therefore competition to still challenge and flourish. They think that they have a different audience that they can address, and so their argument here is that Rogers, being a kind of behemoth media mogul, so to speak, in the sense that they're a carrier, they're a television provider. They're in radio. They own a bunch of radio stations. They have 10 million subscribers on the network. They own about 100
Canadian Business Magazine, Chatelaine.
Yeah, you name it. They're in print. They're in everything. So these guys are all over the map. So they think that not only can they address the nation, from a national perspective, as opposed to just local or just Toronto or just whatever, they also think that they can present deals that are unique to the individual that they already have as a customer, depending on where they are. So if we know you're a reader of Today's Parent Magazine or Chatelaine, or you watch Sportsnet or whatever it is, they understand a little bit about you already, because they already touch you in some way, and they feel that they can actually present you unique deals and offers based on what they know about you. So here's an offer on fashion, or here's an offer on something specific to you. So I think there's a lot going for them here, and we'll see how this plays out. This, by the way, this is a kind of delivered in a standard kind of Groupon type of model. It's not delivered in necessarily in a location-specific framework yet, although they plan on doing that in the new year.
You think there's enough room, like as we said, there's national chains like like Torstar and Post Media that are engaged in this with WagJag and with Swarm Jam across Canada, and then there's obviously Living Social and Groupon that are up here to a certain extent, and then there are local versions of all of these things, smaller local versions, and then this is a cross media. It's interesting play here, because Rogers is national as well with RDeals. Is there enough room here? If this is a $1 billion industry, are they fighting for the same billion, or is RDeals expecting that their portion of this is $1 billion?
No, I think they see the total market as $1 billion, and they're fighting for a piece of that. I don't see it as bigger than that. And it's interesting. The first deal that they put out when they launched this was a deal with Chapters Indigo, which is a national book chain up here, the national book chain up here.
Last book chain standing. Yeah,
and so interestingly, what they did was they said, okay, the deal it's a $32 deal. You get a $25 Chapters Indigo gift card, plus 2 year-long magazine subscriptions from the 8 magazine publications that they have. Today's Parent, Flair, Chatelaine, etc. So you pick any 2 magazines, and you get a $25 gift card to Chapters Indigo for $32.
Wow,
pretty interesting deal, I think.
That's a very interesting deal.
And apparently, they sold from what Mr. Taffler told me. They sold over 800 of these. And this is the very first thing that they announced and put out there. So, and apparently these offers generally are going to be like 90% off the original price. So we'll see. I think there is room in the Canadian market. I'll say that much. I think, players like RDeals, players like Shopcatch, players like Swarm Jam and Shopwise can compete. And I actually think that we're going to see some further decline in Living Social and Groupon in the Canadian market, just
because of these homegrown.
Yeah,
and certainly Rogers has the reach, but so does Swarm, or so does Torstar, so does Post Media.
Yeah, and but you got to remember, in all cases here, you have organizations. To the previous point of the Pandora conversation, you have organizations here that already have feet on the street.
Yeah,
right?
Yep.
They already have local sales teams. In the case of Rogers, these are guys out selling, local radio advertising, selling, all this other stuff that they already do. Same with, Torstar's a publishing company. They own like all these little local newspapers across, the province and et cetera. So, I mean, they have the local presence.
Yeah.
So it's not like they have to go build an entire sales force like Groupon had to do or Living Social has to do.
But you know what's interesting about that, though? So when you look at the makeup of the sales guys that are selling these deals, I think it's very different from the typical advertisement based sales that these guys go out and do. And I think it's an adjustment. And maybe that's where Groupon and Living Social have the advantages, the fact that they've hired based on that specific skill, where the other guys like Torstar, Postmedia, and even Rogers are now conditioning or reconditioning, repurposing their sales guys.
It depends on the kind of deal you're selling. So I think if you're out selling the typical Groupon type of deal, which is the small local business, come in here for get 3 chocolates for the price of 1, that kind of thing. The reality is those little local businesses are the same local businesses that Torstar is selling advertising for in the local newspaper. Yeah. So the community newspaper I'm talking about. Yep. So I think they're already like it's like bundling now. It's like, okay, buy this ad in the local newspaper and put this deal in here and you get this. And but if you're Rogers with the RDeals or your Shopcatch, the other part of Torstar, the target market is big brands, is big retailers. That's a different sales force. But again, they already have a force that deals with that. It's just which sales force are you kind of putting onto this,
tapping into it. Well, I mean, it's interesting to see that all of these guys are going to go in, because I'm going to bet that at some point Bell, the other national provider, will get into this, or TELUS will get into this, and then it'll be this battle on two fronts. It'll be the media battle on the print side, which is Torstar, Postmedia, versus the the up and comers in Groupon and Living Social, that are core, and then it'll be all of those guys battling the carriers, which are Rogers and Bell. And I think the advantage here goes to Rogers and Bell, because their direct relationship with pretty much most of the nation who carries a phone, right?
Yeah, and I wouldn't discount this relationship on the print magazine side, that Rogers has. I think those magazines are pretty powerful.
They are. Good distribution, good reach.
If you understand who those people are that are your subscribers on the magazine side, and you can tie deals into them, I think you have an interesting fit there.
Yeah, but this comes down to that point where this is the perfect point. Rogers owns the relationship with the customer because of the cellular service that they get, or the home service that they get to their cable, because Rogers is a cable provider as well, and a home phone. And add location onto that with something like this, and you've got the perfect endpoint for the customer. And Rogers has 15 million Canadian customers.
One last point before we move on to the next story is, and we haven't talked about this yet, is Rogers has applied for banking status in Canada. So they have applied to become a bank. And if that is approved, then you can fully expect that the whole mobile location-based delivery of deal and payment, connected to that, through a bank, that they own, that whole transaction cycle, added to your carrier, mobile bill, etc. It'll all be there, and we'll see where that goes, whether that gets approved or not. But the fact is, they've applied.
It's crazy what's going on. Rogers, I mean, I got to hand it to them. They have diversified immensely and really dominate the Canadian market. And I don't see why they wouldn't do that with RDeals. Interesting time, isn't it, Asif?
Mm-hmm.
All right,
it's so interesting. We get to talk about silly things now.
Exactly. I was going to say, on from we've hammered those two, right? Which is Home Depot and Pandora, and then certainly Rogers and their RDeals. Let's talk about frivolity, ridiculousness, and it'll put it back into frame where everybody thinks that we're in the middle of a bubble. All right, Weathermob, story number 3.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to read how they describe this, because I just think it's good. So Weathermob, it's an iPhone app. And apparently it mashes up. I love this. I love anything that starts with mashes up. So it mashes up real-time meteorological data, location-based services, photo sharing, and user sentiment to create an app that enables users to report on the weather right now in their local area and share it with their friends and express how they feel about that weather. So this is an app, apparently, that is all about you telling everybody what the weather is where you are, and saying, hey, I'm really happy about the weather here, or I'm really sad, or whatever your thing is. So this is it's a mood ring in the form of iPhone app based on weather, right?
Yeah. Do you really want me to comment on this? I'm from Canada. I mean, you know what? And it's December. I freaking hate the weather, right? But that's how I'm feeling. That's pretty much how Canadians feel from November or late October right through till the end of March. Do you really want me to comment on this, Asif?
Sure, Rob.
Well, this is ridiculous. Okay. This is flat out. You know, again, I don't want to offend Weathermob. I think it's a silly idea. And, you know, I look at something like this and I think, my God, are we really at this point where I'm going to take pictures and show, you know, share my sentiment about the weather? Do I really have that much time? And if you do, it's time for you to get a job. Get off your ass, get off the couch, stop watching TV, stop doing this. You know, put your Twitter account down, your Facebook account down, your LinkedIn account down, your every other social account down. Put Weathermob down and go and get a life.
But Rob, I mean, so Weathermob, here it is. Apparently, these guys are partly owned by lastminute.com. I found out.
Oh, nice.
They're owned by lastminute.com. And they're dual headquarters in London, England, and Boston. Okay?
Yeah.
And the early results, Rob. Here's the early results, though. Come on now. People in Bristol, England are the happiest people on the face of the earth. Sorry, in the UK, that is. Anyways, in the UK, of all of the places in the UK, Bristol is the place to be. And in the US, if you're in the US and you're watching this, you must be a resident of Philadelphia or Miami. Otherwise, you're not feeling good about your weather.
Well, I just don't even know what to say. Like, you know,
I think that people in Philadelphia, they just got their bell rung too many times.
I'm at a loss for words because you know what, I love innovation in the mobile space and so I hate to look at a company like this and say, you know what, stop doing this garbage. But you know, the ulterior motive here is for selling vacations. That even pisses me off even more, right? But they've got to try something innovative, and Weathermob is it. It's not a new social network for weather. It's a way to push you advertising. And goodness gracious me, anybody who signs up for this is ridiculous. And you can, if you want to argue with that, let me know. I say 2 thumbs way down for Weathermob. Shut that down. Go and get a life if you're involved with that. And if you really want to talk about weather, come on up to Canada. We welcome you. It's the first thing we talk about.
There you go.
I don't know what to say. I just don't know what to say. See if Weathermob. I'm not even going to push it out. I don't even care. I'm not even going to tell you where to get it.
So let's move to a place where the weather's always hot.
Yeah.
India.
Oh, okay, yeah, exactly. Get us off this story. Number 4, Weathermob. My God. Number 4. The story number 4. India. MojoStreet. Great name. This is a game, isn't it?
This is a game. So this is a game that is multi-platform, first of all, which is great. I love when these guys, like, it's not only iPhone or only Android to start or whatever. So these guys are on everything, apparently. Android, iOS, BlackBerry, Nokia, it doesn't matter. If you got it, they do it.
I like that.
So it's a game. It's described as a real world game, friend finder, city guide, social network, and loyalty rewards all rolled into one.
What does that sound like?
So it's kind of like Foursquare, Scavenger, and Google Places is how they describe it, all combined. In India, so basically, you know, it's a deal platform. It's a, you know, learn, discover, explore your cities. Apparently, they've got about 18,000 people who've downloaded this in the first 2 weeks that it's been in beta. So this is a new platform, and people have already been checking in from 422 cities around the world. So I mean, they're getting some traction.
So it's not limited to India, is it?
It's not limited to India, but it's an Indian-based thing, and most of the traffic so far is in India.
Okay.
And apparently, they've got 5.5 million locations tagged in it already. So
that's incredible. With
about 150 brands on board, so pretty fast growth. And I mean, you can get that kind of growth, I guess, when you've got a population the size of India. It's sort of like when we talk about Jaipang over in China, and what they're doing. So you know, I expect, you know, in both those markets, you're going to see a lot more players emerge that are you know, competing for this space. And you know, with Google not really you know, playing in these markets at the moment, just opens up the door, right?
It really does, and you know, I wouldn't be surprised if we heard about MojoStreet being bought by one of these players later on, because as Google gets into these local markets, or Foursquare needs to get into these local markets, that's what they do. They look for the winners in the local markets, and I guess what they're talking about is 100,000 people eventually. That's a projection over the next month or so of people that are going to be using this, and that is the growth. You've got 1.4 or 1.4 billion, or 1.3 or 1.4 billion people in the nation. Growing use of smartphones everywhere, and these guys cover all different types, every single one of these mobile devices.
We should talk quickly about the gaming piece of this. So the way they've described it, from what I understand, is it's sort of like Monopoly in a sense in the real world, though. So like Foursquare, you can go to these places, you can check in, and and if you check in enough, you can own it. Or in Foursquare vernacular, you're the mayor, but in their world, like, you basically own that property. And if you're the owner of the property, like in Monopoly, you can charge people rent in a virtual currency way, though. And so that's kind of interesting to me. I think if people can actually make money, virtual or otherwise, from as an incentive for going and owning places, I see a lot of power in this.
Well, I can't argue with that. When you build up a false, or not a false, but a virtual economy around a game like this, I think that this is something that Scavenger is going to try to do. All these guys are trying to do, turn everything into revenue. And I know that there's there's a big demand for this kind of stuff. And if they can prove it right, if they can actually make some money and make somebody else some money, then it becomes a sticky platform, I think, is the ultimate way to do it. I just wonder what happens when the owner of that place actually says, listen, no, I own the rights to this, not only in the real world, right, terrestrial, but also virtual. What happens then? Lawsuits.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think they'll have the same argument against Google and Foursquare and everybody else, though.
Yeah, you're right. Instead of, I suppose that if somebody owns your location, you should reward them because they're so loyal to you. Don't sue them, right?
Something like that.
Something like that. Good business. So MojoStreet in India. That's great. I like the name. MojoStreet. MojoStreet. That's good. Fifth story, last story. Talking about Google. Google scheming. This new product, this beta product called Schemer. What is this?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I don't know. I like it. Good answer.
See what happens. Haven't had a chance to play yet, but so yeah, Schemer. It's called. Apparently, it's a activities recommendation engine, is how it's described. So sort of like Facebook events, mashed up with there's that word again, mashed up with Google Plus. And so what you do is you go on here and you post activities of things that you'd like to do. So you say, hey, I want to go see such and such movie. I want to go do, climb this mountain. I want to do whatever it is that you want to do. You create your bucket list of things. And it doesn't have to be a bucket list. It could be just stuff you want to do next week. But basically it's just posting activities of things that you want to do or you like to do, and then Schemer will recommend other activities for you, other people that might want to do those things with you, etc., etc. So it's kind of like a little bit of a dating service, a little bit of a place to just put things down that you want to do, and then find other relevant information and people and things around it.
That's good, I suppose. It's in beta, right? So it's not out yet. I think that you can sign up for an account if you go to schemer.com. That's schemer.com. You can be added to the wait list. But if you really want to get a little bit of insight into this, go to the Next Web. They have a great review, a video tour, because who was it here? I'll give full credit where credit is due if I can find out who it is that actually wrote that. Yeah, it doesn't even say. Oh yeah, Brad McCarty. Sorry. If you do a search for Schemer on the Next Web at thenextweb.com, you'll actually find an article and a review by Brad, and he goes into detail. There's a 4-minute video. You can see the inside of it and get the gist of it. And who knows what this is going to be? Nobody, he doesn't know. I don't think anybody does. But it does tie into Google Plus very closely, and the circles in Google Plus.
Yeah, and apparently they're testing brands, connecting into this as well. So apparently in the initial beta. Some pretty big brands have signed on to organize schemes. So they've got Bravo, they've got Entertainment Weekly, National Geographic, a bunch of things on it.
Well, I can't. For a long time, people criticized Google for not embracing understanding the social world because of their engineering background. But I think that what they've done over the last little while is they're testing these things out. Again, beta. I mean, isn't Gmail still in beta, or did that just finally came out after like 30 years of beta, right? So this is a beta product again. But it's schemer.com, and go and sign up if this is of any interest to you at all. Or check out the Next Web if you're interested in finding out how it actually works and what it does, what it looks like. Schemer.com, thenextweb.com.
There you go.
5 stories. Home Depot and Pandora. We got Rogers launching RDeals. Not even going to mention the 3rd story. Going right into the 4th, India gets MojoStreet and Google Schemer. The 3rd story, if you were wondering, was the Weathermob. And if you're interested in that, say get off the couch and go get a job. Yates! That's gonna get us some wins, right? That's gonna really.
We're gonna get a lot of tweets about that one.
I hope so. Bring it on. Anybody who's using that, I'd love to hear from.
By the way, thanks to Lava Hound, who discovered that we covered them and tweeted that from a few episodes ago. Tweeted that today. So
episode 50.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to jump right into the product of the week. I had a great opportunity to sit down with Gauri Manglik, who is the co-founder of a company called Fondu. These guys used to be called Spot On. They're New York-based. These guys started with a broad mandate around Spot On, which was reviews of restaurants, bars, and coffee houses, and they found one little feature that all of their customers enjoyed using and shifted. This company was just formed in the summer of this year, and they were a TechCrunch finalist. TechCrunch Disrupt finalist. The company was rated one of the top 25 startups to watch in New York, and they did what companies don't often do, which is look at their idea, look at where they want it to go, stop their old idea, go down the path, and this path is Fondu. So here's Gauri talking about this, and we'll be back after this interview. Well, it's that time for the product of the week, and this week, live from New York City. We got a product called Fondu, and joining me is the co-founder, Gauri Manglik, who is a native of New York, gone to school in New York, and started a couple of companies in New York. Gauri, thank you very much for being here to showcase what you're doing with Fondu.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
So tell me, I got to know. Why don't you explain what Fondu is?
Sure. So Fondu is a social network for sharing bite-sized reviews about places you've been. And so you can share a 175-character review with your friends. And when you're doing that, you know that it's going to people who actually want to hear from you. So the problem with services like Yelp and other directory review sites are that when you share a review, you don't know who you're talking to. And on the other end, when you're actually looking for a place and you have to read these reviews, you have to do the work of deciding if this person is trustworthy or if you should pay attention to their opinion or not. It's very different from an experience like Twitter, where you can completely choose and curate who you want to hear from.
So I got to know, is it easy to use? Who's your target for this?
So right now we're starting with just sharing reviews about restaurants, and so we're very much after like foodies, passionate people who feel like they have good taste in food. So
I love that. Feel like they have good taste in food. Everybody feels like they have good taste in food, right?
They do. It's something that we've discovered. So we just want to be the platform where people feel like they can share their opinions with their friends. We found that when we asked people if they thought that they had opinions and had good taste, almost everybody would say yes. And that if they like telling their friends about cool places they've been, they'd say yes. But they're still not compelled to share on services that exist already, like Yelp. So we want to kind of lower the barrier to make it really easy for them to do that.
Why do you think it is that they're not willing to share on Yelp? Is it just too complicated?
I think Yelp has a lot going on. I think one of the things is that when you look at reviews, they can be kind of intimidating on Yelp because they're very long, very long sometimes, and you don't necessarily see the advantage of telling other Yelpers if they should go to a place or not. Whereas you can immediately see the fun that it could be to just tell your friends about a good place.
So the genesis of obviously of Fondu came from a product that you actually just launched in the summer called Spot On.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't you walk us through that process where you were spot on to get into fondue?
Sure. So we launched Spot On a couple months ago at a conference called TechCrunch Disrupt, and Spot On was a personalized recommendation engine for places. And we would try to add on a social layer to that. So if we said that you should we would recommend that you go to a coffee shop because it seems like your tastes would match up. We would also try to tell you that your friend had been there or that your friend rated it highly. But with Spot On, when we launched it, we got a lot of users, and we asked them what they liked about it, and they said that they liked rating places, but they didn't necessarily care so much about the recommendations they were getting on the other end. They just liked expressing their opinions about food, and so we thought that was really interesting. So that we decided to kind of carry that insight over into fondue.
And so you changed the product, changed the name, changed the branding, changed everything into fondue.
Yeah.
It's a fast turnaround. That's one of the greatest things is that, you can do that, certainly in the mobile space. Turn around these things fast, very quickly. And so the feedback has been good, obviously, since then, since the change?
It's been great. We've had some serious engagement numbers. People are coming back, reading reviews. It's important that it's really easy to write reviews, but not everybody wants to write. So we focused a lot on creating a good consumption experience for reviews as well. So if you can just kind of look at reviews from your friends, and if you agree with them, you can cheers their review. We call it cheers, or you can comment on it, and you can kind of engage with them that way.
Is the goal so that New York is obviously the best city to do this because it's dense population, certainly restaurants everywhere. And is the goal for this discovery, or is it really about broadcasting, the restaurants that you like, or is it for people like me who don't live in New York but like to visit New York and looking for a great restaurant? I mean, how does this work from a location standpoint?
I think first and foremost, it's a platform to express your opinions about food. I think a byproduct of that, very naturally, is that you have all this content about what your friends are saying about places they like or don't like, and so it could very easily become a very powerful discovery tool. But the experience is built around being very easy for you to both produce data, so like just telling your friends about what you like, and also see what your friends like.
Yeah.
Or not necessarily just even your friends, just anybody you want to hear from. So you could want to hear from a blogger or a foodie or a chef or anybody whose opinions who you trust.
Exactly. And it's there's Denny's in New York, so you wouldn't want to trust me. I mean, I'm not a foodie certainly, but I'm always interested in finding great locations in cities, and I love the idea that the people that I know on the planet I can follow them, and I can tag, or I can actually receive information about what restaurants they enjoy, and I think that's one of the key things, is certainly from a marketing standpoint for these restaurants. You start at the foodie level and the broadcast level, but the data that you're collecting is going to be so important, especially when it comes to finding new locations. Is that the future for you guys?
Yeah, exactly. And actually restaurants love it because I feel like this is a platform that's completely unbiased. It's just very authentic conversations about places. And one thing that you find with directories is that you feel like when you're writing a review that you're talking to the venue. So if you have a negative experience, you want to kind of get back at them and write a bad review. Right. But on Fondue, you're not connected to the venue like that. You're talking to people. So people actually tend to share more positive experiences, which is nice because you'd rather know where to go than where not to go.
So what about kind of looking forward in the next year? You guys, you've rolled this out. You've just launched. What happens next in the next kind of 6, 9, 12 months for you guys?
So we've launched our iPhone app, and it's available everywhere in the world. We just keep working on our product, listening to our users, and improving it. We're also expanding to the web very soon, and so we're working on that, and that's kind of our next big milestone. And then also Android after, but we're definitely prioritizing web first.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Web first before the mobile side. Yeah, the iOS, web, and then Android.
Yeah, I would say web and Android will definitely overlap it, but if you want to reach a lot of users really quickly, web is the most accessible.
People forget that, right?
Yeah.
It is certainly the thing that cross-platform, all devices, maybe except for the BlackBerry, but also these things that we use every day, which are the desktops and laptops that follow us, right?
Yeah, and since we're all about content creation, we want people to write reviews, and reviews are people are comfortable doing that on the web.
Yeah, well, definitely, it's what they do.
Yeah.
So they find you where? Where can people find you?
So you can, we're on the web. We have a website, fondu.com, FONDU, or you can download our app from the iPhone App Store and just search for us.
And start reviewing restaurants, right?
Yeah, start writing some reviews, telling your friends where they should go.
This has been great. Like, I really appreciate you doing this. We love featuring these companies that are up and comers, and certainly launched at TechCrunch Disrupt in one of the top 25 startups to watch in New York City. So really pleased that you could join us. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks again for having me. All right.
Well, Asif, I don't know. Shifting a company in such a short period of time when they only had, they were only in business for 3 months, and they did the shift. Big story, great story. I love the fact that they've focused and they've been able to do this. I'm a big fan of what they're doing. Hopefully they can make it through this next phase.
Right, and I mean, there's something to be said about small businesses and teams that are willing to adapt and be agile, right, and know that original idea isn't going to cut it, and listening to customers and seeing what's working and moving. So good on them.
Well, I sat down with Gauri a while back when she launched Spot On, and one of the key things that I got out of that conversation was they said, listen, we focus a lot on what customers are telling us, and she told me that way back in the summer when I sat down with her for Untether, and it's so funny because I brought that out of the conversation and I highlighted it in my blog post about her, and then sure enough, 3.5 months later, they hunker down and change the business model around what their customers are saying. So not only were they talking about it, we hear lots of companies talking about that, but the fact is that they actually acted on it, which is very few companies do that. They get set in their ways and they drive down a path until they hit that cliff. Certainly a lot of companies are down that, and these guys had the sense, the patient investors, and the wherewithal to make that transition. So all the best to them, and I really appreciate Gauri coming on and enlightening us or helping us understand what Fondu's about. It's Fondu. Fondu.com, best domain name too.
I'm getting hungry now.
Yeah,
Fondu.
exactly.
All
right, let's talk about funding, buddy. Funding, big dollars being spent this week.
Three good stories this week.
All right, let's start with while we were in there, we were talking about RDeals from Rogers, but here's Living Social raising a gob-smacking amount of money.
Yeah. So apparently they've gone out and they said, look, we saw the Groupon IPO debacle. We don't want to do that. We were thinking about doing that, but we're not going to do that. Let's just go raise, whack more money privately, and go at our business. So they basically said, look, we're going to raise $400 million, and they've already closed 176 million of that. According to recent filings at the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. And this is pretty scary stuff. I mean, like this is at a $6 billion valuation. These guys know that they need capital. We talked about this being a human capital intensive business, being in this market. And, they want to keep growing. They want to keep acquiring smaller players. They want to grow internationally into other geographic markets, and they need the capital to do it. So, good on them. I applaud this move and not going IPO. I think this makes sense.
Yeah, good for them. And these guys are backed by some like JP Morgan, Lightspeed Ventures, and Amazon.com. Mm-hmm. And so they're valued at $6 billion. They've raised, okay, I got to tell you, they've spent $353 million in buying companies. So you can imagine how much they've raised. They've raised $808 million to date. We were talking before we started recording here that there was a company back maybe 10 or 12 years ago, maybe 13 or 14 years ago, called Ballard Power Systems. Remember Ballard? Yeah. These are the guys that were trying to reinvent energy, right? So the fuel cells, these guys were, they raised $1 billion, which is pretty much when Living Social finishes its raise of this latest raise of $400 million, they will be at $1 billion raised for rebates and coupon company. Whereas Ballard Power Systems raised $1 billion to change the face of energy and energy creation And I just wonder if our values are a little skewed here around $1 billion being raised for a stupid company that does coupons versus $1 billion versus the company who's going to change the way that energy is consumed and created. I don't know what's happened here. I just don't know. I don't get this. Like, I look at Living. I'm glad they're not going public because a lot of people would have lost a lot of money.
I totally think this is the right move for them. I mean, if you're in this business, you got, I applaud what these guys are doing. I'm
not going public.
We've hammered Groupon, and we, over and over again on this show. And but I think this is a good move. If you're Living Social, this is a good move.
Yeah.
I'll buy your point on Ballard Power Systems and reinventing energy. Is much more noble, let's just say, than Deals.
It didn't work.
At the end of the day, the deal market's about consumers.
Yeah.
The average consumer is not really interested in a fuel cell. So we got to say that for now, even today.
It's true. It's true.
10 years ago we were talking about Ballard Power, but anyways.
But I think that and Ballard, the fuel cell, at least their implementation didn't work, and their stocks at $1 or something like that. They did go public, and so I applaud the fact that Living Social didn't go public. I just wonder if we've just skewed what we feel is important today around what's of great value. Living Social. I mean, you yourself said it. It's like $1 billion. The value of this industry in Canada is maybe $1 billion, right? And then if the population is 30 times that or 10 times that in the States, then this is a $10 billion industry in the States. And that's $1 billion is going into this company. $1 billion has gone into the other company, and we still haven't seen anybody really generating sustainable profits at a margin that would actually warrant that kind of valuation. That's all I'm saying. We agree. The best
part of this, though, is if you're JP Morgan and Code Advisors, the two companies that basically raised the capital for them, the agents.
Yeah, they made money.
The agents get $5 million in this deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good on them.
I like it.
$5 million.
I like it just for bringing in the cash. So anyhow,
well, 176 million on their way to 400 million. They've raised 808 on their way to $1 billion. They've spent $353 million in companies. So I would say if you're a small company, find out where their holes are, build that company, and get bought.
Yeah,
you're the only one that'll make money out of this deal. Good that they didn't go public. LivingSocial.com. All right, second story. Plum District raises $20 million and then goes on a little bit of a spending spree.
Yeah.
First of all, Plum District.
Yeah, so expect Plum District to get bought up by Living Social very shortly. Anyways, yeah. So they raised $20 million. It's a Series C for them, and then they acquired two companies, Doodle Deals and Chatterfly. And Plum District, if listeners aren't familiar with them, this is a company that's focused on daily deal sites that are aimed at mothers in particular. And so they, this is with this 20 million, they've raised 30 in total now. I don't have a lot to say about these guys. It's they've got some interesting people connected with it as well. So they've got Comcast Ventures involved in this. They've got General Catalyst Partners. A guy named Raul Vasquez, who's the former CEO of Walmart.com, is on their board. So they've got some pretty big sticks at the table, and they've got some capital. So let's go see what they can do.
I like it. You talked really early on, Asif, this year that this was the year of consolidation for this industry, and here's a perfect example of basically a roll up. $20 million in, two companies in, building a bigger instance. This is a roll up into something like Living Social, but your prediction at the beginning of the year still holds true at the end of the year. They're still doing this, right? A lot of small players.
Let's just hope I can do it again for next year.
What's pardon me?
I gotta see what I predict for next year now.
Oh, exactly. It's like I think it's going to be a roll up. I think.
Yeah.
My prediction is that Groupon will go out of business, but we'll talk about that on our wrap up.
Okay.
But that's good. So Plum District roll up, raises 20 million, buys Doodle Deals and Chatterfly, and we'll see what happens. Last deal. Wow, $155 million.
Yeah, this is one I'm really interested in this company and seeing how they progress. It's a company based in Sweden called Klarna, and it's basically a company that's trying to go head to head with PayPal. So this is their third round of capital. They had raised 10 million up until now, and you know, they effectively are a mobile payments processing company. And you know, these guys. The interesting thing about this latest round is they've got, you know, although they're based in Sweden and they've been playing pretty much only in the European market to date. They've you know, I'm just going to pull some numbers out here. So they basically have 14,000 merchants on the system right now, mostly in Europe. About 6 million consumers that have been using it. Processed 2.5 billion in payments in the last year. So I mean, these guys are you know, they're a going concern, I would say, in the European market. And to me, the most interesting thing here is that the new investors include Sequoia Capital and DST, which you know, is involved in Facebook and Zynga and Twitter and a bunch of other.
These are American companies.
American big companies. So, what does that mean? You know, are these guys looking to you know, bring them into the North American market and go head to head? Let's hope so. I think more competition is better in this space.
Yeah, you said 6 million shoppers already using this?
Yeah.
So I mean, it just shows you how what the opportunities are. How many out there have heard of Klarna? Klarna.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things that we all know of PayPal. We all know what's going on with Google Wallet and NFC, and we all know what Starbucks is doing. But you know, this is a big world, and my guess is that there are a number of these guys that are playing out there in this space that will pop their head up. Do you think that I mean, is this something that they're seriously going to be able to rival PayPal and the reach that PayPal has?
Well, I think the challenge is you know, PayPal is just a part of that you know, big ecosystem over at eBay that we talk about, and you know, I think there's a lot of other things that, you know, make PayPal appealing to the consumer. You know, so as a standalone payment processing vehicle, you know, I think there's some interesting things here that I see from, you know, what I can tell about reading up on Klarna in the last, you know, few days. But, you know, when you look at it in the wider ecosystem, you know, I think Klarna needs to look at how they connect to other pieces of the pie.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting. A lot of transactions. 6 million people, $2.5 billion worth of transactions annually. 14,000 connected merchants. They say that they do 40% of all transaction in participating stores are handled by Klarna. That's big, and I think that this is good for the industry. Maybe adds another level of confusion, but certainly we're in this in formation stage, and a lot of innovation is happening here.
Yeah, and and this is a company, like I said, I'm really interested in what they're doing. I'm going to reach out to them and see if we can't get them involved. We've got the LBMA's got an event coming up in February in Amsterdam around mobile payments, and perhaps we can get them involved in that.
Nice. So you know what? You brought 3 deals, $351 million value. That's pretty impressive. Good week.
Yeah.
Not bad for a couple of weeks before Christmas. Not bad at all. So those are the 3 deals. Living Social, 176 million. We've got Plum District raising 20, and we've got this Klarna. I totally butchered it. $155 million raised. Go to Klarna.com, KLARNA.com. If you want some more information about that, I'd love to speak. If anybody out there, I'd love to speak to you from Tether.tv as well, from Klarna. Big week. So last piece here is our resource. And you know, this is an interesting piece on Forbes around the mobile wallet.
Yeah, and I pulled this one out this week because, you know, obviously mobile wallet is a hot topic right now. Everybody's talking about NFC and mobile wallet. You know, we just talked about it with Klarna to some extent. And I thought when I read this piece, this is from Forbes.com, which, you know, just puts out fantastic articles on a regular basis. Yeah. But what I really like about this is that a lot of people are excited about mobile wallet, and this article to me just kind of brings it back down to a little bit of common sense in the sense that, you know, yeah, okay, mobile wallet's interesting, you know, and there's going to be some utility there eventually, but we need to understand what it is before we just all jump into it. Like, at the moment, you know, paying with my mobile phone might actually take a lot longer than paying with my regular, you know, wallet. You know, so, you know, what's the incentive for me? For a merchant, I got to go buy new equipment to handle the process of that mobile payment, through that mobile wallet. Is there enough incentive for me yet? So this article just, in a very simple way, kind of talks about those things, and just kind of brings a little bit of reality to the discussion. So that's why I wanted to bring it forward.
Yeah, and it is good. The article is entitled "Mobile Wallet, Anyone? Sure, but please make it mine a smart one," and it's by Surinder Paul. He's the market development manager for SAP. Now, this is an interesting play. I think the biggest stumbling block, I've talked about this quite a bit through Untether.tv, and there's actually an episode on Daily Mobile Minute about this, which is the fact that we've got to lose the vernacular of our old school lives, which is don't call this a mobile wallet. Because it just brings up this idea that it has to, I think of George Costanza's wallet. Every time somebody says that, it's like, how do you condense that into something digital? And he brings up some great points, is that it's got to create value. I mean, the easiest way is not about transactions. It's got to be some reason for me to use this thing. And that's what everybody's struggling with right now, is that reason for using this technology. So don't call it a mobile wallet. Start somewhere simple, and start doing something right, and complementing the existing wallet. Because I think I talked about this very quickly. Is that I was at CTIA in San Diego a while back, and I was watching a panel, and it was actually moderated by Gary Schwartz, who we know is a wonderful guy and author of a brand new book, and. What ends up happening in this panel is that somebody from the audience puts up their hand after this, and it was all about mobile payments, mobile wallets, mobile commerce, and he says, "Well, how many wallets am I going to be carrying?" And one of the guys on the panel says, "Oh, 1 or 2 or 3, maybe at the most, maybe 2 at the most." And I thought, that's wrong, because you're not going to be carrying two mobile wallets. I don't carry 2 wallets. Why would I be carrying 2 mobile wallets? Right. So I think that we've got to think about how we're phrasing this, and I think that Surinder does a great job of kind of simplifying.
Totally. No, I that's why I brought it forward. I mean, I think it's just it brings a reality check to, before we jump into it. Anyhow, great job.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Got nothing left. I think I'm spent.
One last thing. So if you're in San Francisco this week, I'm actually off to San Francisco in the morning. For the week for a conference called ILM West, Interactive Local Media West, Closing the Local Loop. This is a conference put on by BIA Kelsey, and all the players in the location ecosystem will be out there. So that's in San Fran this week. If you can make it, hope to see you there.
Now, Asif, I expect you to be weather mobbing that whole trip.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's it for episode number 55. Of course, if you guys out there listening or watching have a comment, suggestion, feeling, I would love to hear from you. Asif would love to hear you. You can reach out at, I got a new email address. How's this? Just to mess things up. So you can reach out at untether@gmail.com or rob@untether.tv. One of those two will reach me. You can reach Asif at theLBMA.com. If you agree, disagree, want to send me some hate mail, if you are actually Weathermob and want to challenge me on what you're doing, come on. Love to hear from you, wouldn't we?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So send it that way. We will be back for episode number 55 or 56 next week. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, however you consume this, we really appreciate the fact that you do. Thank you so much for doing this week in and week out. You're the reason why we're doing this. We're going to come back for a 56th episode. Feedback has been great. Keep it coming. We really appreciate it.
All right.
With that, we'll see you next week, Asif.
Cheers.
Have a safe travel and a safe week in San Francisco.
Thank you, sir.
See you later, everybody.